Welcome back, everybody! Hang on. What am I going to say after that?
That was terrible.
That was so awful. I'm
Take two.
We are ZombieBananaSpiders.
Bananas and spiders, we hate them.
We hate them.
Don't like them.
And welcome back. We are ZombieBananaSpiders. I am Heather, and with me today is
Hilary
and
Colin. Hi.
And awkward pauses all around. And we're going to be talking about St. Patrick's Day and a little bit of history, a little bit of St. Patrick's Day themed movies, horror, all that wonderful stuff. So, to kick off, what are your thoughts on St. Patrick's Day? Fun St. Patrick's Day experiences you've had? Care to share?
I mean, it seems like in the US, at least, a lot of people consider St. Pat's a way or a reason to go out there and get like blackout drunk and carry on and like, cool, man, whatever you're into is all good. But since I'm no longer in college, I don't go to like the big Pittsburgh downtown St. Pat's Day party I used to. But anymore, I really like just like curling up in front of a fire with a little bit of like Jameson and book on like Irish mythology and like having fun. So I really enjoy the culture of Ireland and the myths and legends. So that's kind of how I view St. Pat's Day. How about you, Hilary?
Well, I used to live in Chicago. I lived in Chicago for about 10 years, and they take it seriously up there, but I never really understood why I understand that there's a great Irish culture up there, but it's just people going out starting at like when they wake up to when they pass out drinking, and that just sounds awful. That sounds like I would be puking by 5 o'clock. And the sun's still up, and there's nothing worse than being trashed, vomiting when the sun is still up.
Fair enough.
In terms of like when I was younger, we used to decorate like the classrooms and stuff for St. Patrick's Day with 4-leaf clovers, and they would have like little posters of leprechauns and stuff, but no one ever really explained anything about why there was a connection with that, and like who St. Patrick was. I didn't grow up Catholic. My family, I have family that's Catholic, but yeah, so it's kind of been just one of those holidays that's like, okay, well, I'm happy that you guys are happy. This holiday I don't think is necessarily for me.
Sure. I can tell you a real quick aside, I did grow up Catholic, and I still had no idea about St. Patrick. Just that, like, the elementary school version or the preschool version of like, oh, he drove the snakes from Ireland. Isn't that great? Yeah, well, when you're like 18 years old, that still doesn't hold a lot of water. You want to know more. Like, give me more than that. So.
How does that translate to dyeing a river green and getting trashed for an entire day? Not that I'm knocking it. It sometimes just letting loose and doing that kind of thing is fun. Whatever you like.
Here. Well, Heather, on that note, what are your thoughts on St. Pat's Day?
It's a beautiful segue that into the history, the non-extensive research that I did into the history of St. Patrick's Day and leprechauns, which we'll get into something we're going to talk about later. But I did have two St. Patrick's Day stories that I do want to share. The first is, and I don't even remember why I was in Chicago, but I was passing through, like in order for me to get home, for most of my life, because I did not own a car, I would take the train. So whenever, like, wherever you go, you have to go through Chicago, the Amtrak station in Chicago. And I was heading home, and it just didn't occur to me that it was St. Patrick's Day. I think, like, for the same reason you guys were saying, like, it's kind of that holiday. The only reason I know about it is the other story that I have to share, and that is I live in a college town. I teach at a university, and on St. Patrick's Day in this town, the bars open at sunrise. So all of my students go and get wasted, and then they come to class.
They come to class? Dude, that's amateur hour right there.
Well, see, the thing is, they get, and they're told this. I don't know if it's actual university policy or if it's a teacher by teacher policy, but they usually get two free unexcused absences for emergencies and stuff like that. After that, their absence starts affecting their grade. So they're told, like, celebrating St. Patrick's Day is not it's not a religious holiday. You don't get, this will count as one of your unexcused absences if you don't show up. So they still want to take part in the drunken festivities, but they don't want it to negatively impact their grades. So they go to the bars early and then go to class.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Sounds awful.
So there's that, but yeah, so, like, that's the only reason why I know it's St. Patrick's Day. Is before I was teaching online, I'd be going to class or, just out walking, and I'd see these huge clumps of students, like 9 o'clock in the morning, making their way downtown to the bars. I'm like, oh, it's St. Patrick's Day. So that was why it did not even occur to me when I was taking the train from here home and I had to pass through Chicago. I didn't even realize it was St. Patrick's Day until I got off the train in Chicago, and I'm like, why is there so many people? Why are they all dressed in green? Oh no. So I desperately had to go to the bathroom. I have a thing about going to the bathroom on trains and planes. I just don't like doing it. Now you know way too much about me. So
yeah, that's spread to the internet for everyone.
Yeah, for everyone to share.
So
I tend to wait, and I go at the station, and the line out for the women's bathroom was, it's a mile long, like, literally. And there were women going into the men's room, like we don't even care. We're not waiting in this line. So women would, like, squad up with all their girls and go into the men's room. It was really entertaining. It was really entertaining. But
that whole thing sounds like a younger man's game, man. That's
like, I was never a partier. It never interested me at all when I was in college, and I'm, like, so happy to have grown into that. Because I feel like when you're in your late teens, early 20s, even in grad school, when I was just a little bit older, it's like, it's not culturally acceptable to not like going out. Like, you go out, you drink with your friends, like, that's how you socialize. There's no other ways to socialize, really, in college life. I mean, there always are, but that's, like, the main one. And it always seemed like most of the people I hung out with, that was what they wanted to do. And so I always felt like, I'm not a part of this. I'm not interested in it. So I'm, like, finally glad to be old enough where I have an excuse. So, on that note, I'm going to regale you with a bit of history about St. Patrick's Day and leprechauns. So, St. Patrick, patron saint of Ireland, he was lived during the 5th century, I believe, and everybody's going to have to take all of this with a slight grain of salt. I had to do more of a deep dive internet search because of COVID. Our libraries are affected. I really wanted to go and actually be with other books again. I mean, I love my books, but I miss libraries, and so I wasn't able to go. So he's a patron saint of Ireland, and kind of the story goes, general story, is that he was kidnapped from Great Britain and enslaved in Ireland, and he lived there as a slave for around 6 years. He managed to escape, had all these trials and tribulations getting back to Britain. He made it back, and later in his life he felt a calling to return to Ireland and proselytize, basically. And I believe that is the main reason why he was made a saint, is that he brought Christianity to Ireland.
Okay.
I don't think he's the first person to bring Christianity to Ireland or to proselytize in Ireland, but he became the most famous. There are writings. We still have two writings that he left talking about various things, and then there are legends that were built up around him. The legend that he expelled all of the snakes in Ireland. There was another one. I think there's a legend that he raised people from the dead, or he brought people back from the dead. There's the most famous legend about him is explaining the Holy Trinity using the shamrock. So that was something very specific to Ireland that people appreciated, and it became part of his lore.
Sure.
So his feast day, because he is a Catholic saint, his feast day is March 17th, and I think that was actually his death day. I think that's the day that he died.
Okay.
Some sources were saying we're not exactly sure when he was born. They couldn't pin down a specific date, but I believe that March 17th was the day that he died, and that became his feast day. According to one source, St. Patrick's Day has been celebrated in Ireland as a Roman Catholic feast day for over 1,000 years. It happens during Lent, and it's kind of interesting because this year you get Valentine's Day. You get Valentine's Day, and then Mardi Gras happens right after it. So the season of Lent starts pretty early this year.
Very early.
But St. Patrick's Day falls in the season of Lent, which is supposed to be fasting and deprivation and stuff. But on St. Patrick's Day, you got a pass. So the idea was everybody went to Mass in the morning and then partied after they got home. So it was a big, I think that's probably not so much anymore, because Lent isn't as pervasive culturally, I think. I mean, it is if you are Catholic, and even if you're Lutheran, Lutherans can celebrate Lent or observe Lent as well. But it's not so culturally huge anymore. So like getting a pass day in Lent would be a big deal. So I think that's why so many people went out and just like they ate and they drank and they sang and they did all of these things. Let's see. The first St. Patrick's Day parade was in the United States, according to this one source I found. Was on, I believe, so it was March 17th, obviously. In 1601, they had it in a Spanish colony in Florida, but it was organized by the colony's Irish vicar. So even though it was a Spanish colony, they had an Irish priest, and so he organized a St. Patrick's Day parade. And in 1848, the New York Irish Aid organizations, there were a bunch of different ones, they united all of their St. Patrick's Day parades, and that is apparently the world's oldest civilian parade. which
Okay.
I question because 1848 was not that long ago. Like, time-wise speaking, I mean, if we think back to, like, the Roman pageants and stuff like that, they're calling this one the world's oldest civilian parade.
Is it the oldest civilian parade that is still going?
I don't know. That might be.
Okay.
That might be. And interestingly, according to another source, up until the 1970s, pubs had to stay closed on St. Patrick's Day in Ireland by law. The pubs were not allowed to open.
Yeah. Wow. So that's interesting. So they've been doing this for 1,000 years, St. Patrick's Day. It's in the middle of Lent when you're supposed to be fasting and denying yourself, and then, hey guys, here's a reprieve day, like, go for it. And so it's the in the US, at least, the Irish immigrants kind of bring it over, and as early as 1600. That's crazy to me. That was unexpected. And then in New York, the Irish communities all band together to do this, and then that's it, right? It's still going strong today, huh? The tradition since the 1840s.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's I love history. I think it's so cool. And I went down so many random rabbit holes. Like, there was a town, crap, I can't remember where it was now, but it was disputing with Chicago, saying that because Chicago's big thing of dyeing the river green, this other town, I can't remember where it was saying, we did it first. We just didn't use enough green dye, and so it didn't last that long. So I don't know, there's this random thing between this one town and Chicago about who dyed the river green first. So it was really fun doing the research.
That's very cool. Now, you also did some research on leprechauns and maybe some other Celtic folklore?
I did. I focused mostly on leprechauns, but I did this with an eye to the leprechaun horror movies, because kind of like last time with Valentine's Day, I was really interested to see why people were picking Valentine's Day to use in horror movies. Like, we kind of talked about how sometimes it was just for convenience, and like with Thanksgiving, it's like we needed an excuse to get the family together. Make it Thanksgiving. We want to show couples getting brutally murdered. Make it Valentine's Day. But I was interested to see if there was any weird connections or things that, say, this time around, the Leprechaun movies used that seemed really stupid, unless, like, does it connect to Irish lore in any way? Like, how far up my own butt can I go? So, turns out pretty far. So I am going to apologize and not even attempt to pronounce the different spellings of leprechaun. There are so many of them, and they are so awesome. We will just sort of put them on the screen somewhere so everyone can enjoy them. But leprechauns are a type of fairy, but they are distinguished from fairies in Irish lore are sometimes called the good people or the good folk, and those are the types of fairies that make what are they called? That make the fairy mounds and things, like you can still find in Ireland, and people will point them out to you. Leprechauns are distinguished from those types of fairies. So they're called fairies, but they're not sort of in the same group as those. I had one source actually liken them to, like, dwarves, how we perceive dwarves kind of in just general folklore.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, within Irish and Celtic mythology, fairy is like a huge umbrella term. It encompasses like dozens, if not hundreds, of different creatures and the like.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
I'm sorry, I'm looking down so much. I have my notes.
No worries.
Interestingly, according to one source, leprechauns this one source said that leprechauns actually aren't all that prominent in early Irish mythology, but they come around in later folklore. And I thought that the differentiation I just thought was interesting, saying they're not part of mythology, they are part of folklore. So that might be something we could get into in another episode or something. But according to O'Reilly's Irish/English dictionary, leprechauns are a sprite, a pygmy, a fairy of diminutive size who always carries a purse containing a shilling. And like that's kind of the thing with the leprechaun's pot of gold. A lot of the sources that I found called them shillings. And I always thought that shillings were different from actual gold coins. So I think that's something that they use in the Leprechaun movies, that he's always asking about his shillings. So I thought that was kind of cool. Please pass by. Thank you. One source that I found said that there might be a connection between the word leprechaun and the Roman feast of Lupercalia, which we talked about for
the meat slapping one,
the
right?
The meat slapping one. So
yeah,
there's no like
all right.
Nothing else I could find like connected those two things. I was just kind of struck by that. It's connecting the word, not necessarily the being. Now here's the thing I did not know. Leprechauns used to wear red. It's only much more recently that they've been dressed in green. But they used to... I found so many sources describing in painful detail all of the different types of clothing that leprechauns could wear. How many buttons and what their hats looked like and what their stockings looked like. It's kind of incredible. So anybody who's interested in like folklore and clothing, check out leprechauns. But they used to just wear red. They were known by their red clothing. The types of clothing that they wore varied by region, but it was always red. And this was something that I understand it, but I wanted to know more, was that the switch to green was explained in one source as a modern invention, since green is the national color of Ireland.
Yeah.
And I mean, that makes sense, but if you have this history of a color associated with a certain being, just that, like, snap quick, nope, he's gonna be in green now, it seems a little weird to me. Maybe it happened that way, but that seemed a little weird. Now, this was another thing I thought was pretty cool, was one source said specifically that leprechauns are mischievous. Like, okay, all the sources said that leprechauns are mischievous. They'll play pranks on you, they'll play tricks on you. One source in particular said they are mischievous, but they wouldn't steal your children. And I thought that was a really odd yet specific reassurance. I mean, there's a whole history, I believe it's in Irish folklore and legend, of changelings. So I think that's where that comes from. So the one source, it said it won't steal your children, but then in this article I found in Live Science, it said, and I'm quoting, "Leprechauns are a type of fairy, though it's important to note that the fairies of Irish folklore were not cute, Disneyfied pixies. They could be lustful, nasty, capricious creatures whose magic might delight you one day and kill you the next if you displeased them." So it seems like leprechauns got more going on than just, oh, they're gonna play little tricks on you. Like, if you piss them off, they might dispatch of you in horribly ironic ways.
Did they say anything about shoes? Because, like, the Leprechaun movies, he has a shoe thing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that like elves are supposed to like shoes or something.
Yes. Leprechauns are they're always associated with shoes. Like they are shoemakers. Their clothing back in the day, and maybe even today, would often involve like a leather apron that cobblers would use.
Mm-hmm.
They're known for making shoes and brogues, which is a type of very sturdy outdoor shoe. So yes, there is a very much connection, God, English, between leprechauns and shoes.
Hmm.
And in fact, one of the words that, or I guess it's two words that might have become the word leprechaun, means shoemaker. So very close connection, which is interesting. Did I write down that? No, I guess I didn't, but I do remember one article commenting on the kind of discrepancy between leprechauns being shoemakers, which, I mean, it's an important profession, but it wasn't one known for like making a lot of money. So you've got that on the one side, but all leprechauns have a pot of gold. So there wasn't really this, like, where did the leprechaun's pot of gold come from? I know there's a lot of legends with hidden gold in Ireland. I know that some of them are connected with leprechauns and some of them aren't, but that was kind of an interesting connection there.
Well, didn't you say that it initially was a shilling in a pouch? Like a singular shilling in a pouch?
Was it singular, or was it just carrying their shillings? Yeah, they carry a purse containing a shilling. Yeah,
So it evolved into a pot of gold.
Yeah.
So
I can imagine that, like, just like any sort of evolution over the centuries of stories being told, it's like, oh, I saw a leprechaun and he had a shilling, and he gave me a shilling, and you say that to your grandkids or whatever, and then when they get older, they got to top it, like, oh, this leprechaun, he had 5 shillings in his pouch, and the kids are like, whoa, and then after 400 years, it's like, and he has a pot of gold, and it's under the rainbow, and so I could see how that would evolve.
It really makes me wonder, now that you say that, if it's kind of like the tooth fairy and inflation.
Yeah.
That's all it really is.
Yeah, if you got a dime for a tooth in 1978, you were doing good, but the rates have gone up.
Oh, let's see, what else? Okay, so for one source, depending on the story, if you wanted the leprechaun's pot of gold, or if you wanted him to grant you 3 wishes, you had to either capture the leprechaun himself, capture his magic ring, his magic coin, or his amulet. And I think all of those things, maybe not a ring, I can't remember, but the
I'm not sure. Yeah.
The coin and the amulet definitely play into the Leprechaun movies.
Yep.
And of course the idea was, he had to barter with you for his freedom, but it was always a be careful what you wish for, monkey's paw type deal.
Yeah.
Another thing I discovered, leprechauns are always male. There are no female leprechauns in Irish history.
Interesting.
Now this was a thing that I wrote. There's an article I actually wrote in my notes. There's a freaking article in Country Living, published February 1st, 2021, asking if leprechauns are real. Like, that's the title of the article. And well, at first I thought this was the dumbest thing I had ever stumbled upon. The author actually said, whether or not you believe in these little creatures isn't quite so important as whether you respect the culture that first dreamed them up. And I'm like,
agreed.
Okay. That's legit. And that actually got me thinking about there's a book called The Burning of Bridget Cleary. And this was an event, it happened in 1895. Yeah, I'm so bad with numbers. It happened in 1895, where a man became convinced that his wife, had been replaced by a changeling. And she did everything to convince him that she wasn't, and it worked for a little while, but later on he was just absolutely convinced that she was a changeling, and so he and her male relatives set her on fire and killed her. And there's so much there's this book. I know there's more than this one book, but there's been a lot of research into this event because it happened so relatively recently. I mean, it's over 100 years ago, but it's not. It's at the turn of the 20th century. Like, we think we're enlightened, we're educated, but there's still this element of this culture that has been around for thousands of years that still competes with all of our scientific knowledge and everything. So I thought that was really good, that they said it's important to respect the culture, and the idea that the culture is still around. And a less setting people on fire example of how the idea of this culture is still around. In 2009, the 236 surviving leprechauns in Ireland were given protection under the European Habitats Directive. This was specifically in a town called Carlingford. And according to IrishCentral.com, the directive was part of an effort to preserve the rich biodiversity of this area, now a protected area for flora, fauna, wild animals, and leprechauns. And the whole... Oh, go ahead.
So leprechauns are protected. You can't hunt, kill, trap, skin, eat, whatever you're going to do to a leprechaun.
Nope.
I am glad to hear it. I am glad to hear it.
And I thought it was cool because there was a person talking about it, and they were like, it shows that aspects of our culture are worth preserving. That's kind of basically the bottom line. You do have a society in this town, I read a little bit about them, that absolutely do believe that there are leprechauns. They found a tiny set of clothing and I think 5 shillings out in the woods one day or on a mountain. So there are people in this town who do believe in actual literal leprechauns. But I think for most everybody else, it's more... This is recognition of our very rich culture. We're not taking it too seriously. It has helped the tourism industry in Carlingford, though. So there's that perk.
Glad to hear it. Well, any other thoughts on leprechauns, Heather?
Oh, there was one more thing. And that was with iron. Because that came up, I know, in one of the Kill Count episodes, where he was talking about, I think was it the second Leprechaun movie? Whenever it happens where the leprechaun is burned by iron and the who's the guy?
I feel like they mention it in a couple of them.
I think they do, yeah. But the host of Kill Count made a comment about it, and that
James A. Janice
made a comment about it, and I remembered from reading a bunch of stories about other aspects of the fairies of Ireland and the good people, that there was a thing with iron. And I didn't find any one specific answer, but a couple of things that I found was that iron eventually became the symbolic power of the Christians over the pagans. So it was kind of because I know I read, and I mean this was a fictional work, but it actually had St. Patrick in it, where there was this literal war between the fairy folk of Ireland and the newly newly converted Christians, and iron played a big part of it. And according to one source, the early Britons were considered magical by the Romans, like by the invading Romans when the Romans came, because they would seemingly appear and disappear out of the forests. They would paint themselves with blue woad, and they just seemed so very other to the Romans that the Romans equated them with like fairies or magical beings. And so the Britons, or the magical beings, had, was it copper? Bronze. They had bronze weapons, and the Romans had iron. And it was partially because the difference in weaponry that the Romans were able to invade and conquer as much as they did. So that source said that that contributed to the idea that iron was detrimental to the fairy folk, because in that particular story, all of Britain were the fairy folk. So I thought that was pretty cool.
I like it. Well, that was a great bit of history, Heather. Thanks so much for doing all that research. I feel like I now know more about St. Patrick and St. Patrick's Day than my Catholic upbringing and public school in the USA ever told me.
And
so that's like, pretty great.
That's seriously just scratching the surface. I know there are things
I imagine.
So
I know.
If anybody watching or listening like knows other things about St. Patrick's Day or leprechauns or anything related to Irish folklore and would like to share, please leave us a comment.
Folklore or history is all good. So, like that town that you mentioned, Heather, let's not take things too seriously here. Let's talk about some Irish horror movies and books and whatever.
I like it.
So is there a famous example of an Irish creature in horror? Because I'm racking my brain. Does anybody like think of like maybe 6 movies where he goes into space and the hood
twice
and back to the hood?
Yes.
What do you guys got?
Well, the Leprechaun series with Warwick Davis is pretty wonderful. It's interesting to watch older horror movies or horror anthologies like Tales from the Crypt and things like that, and see all the recognizable faces before they were famous.
Is there a now famous person in at least one of the Leprechaun movies? Maybe the first one? Someone that wants to keep it off their resume? Enlighten me.
Wow. Jennifer Aniston.
Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah, she's in the first one. Is she the only one? I feel like there were a couple people in these movies.
Was the guy
anyway.
The guy who was in he was in the first movie. He was the comic relief of the 3 painters.
Yeah, he's somebody.
Was he like a more well-known like character actor, or maybe not? But I thought I'd seen him in other things.
No, he is. I don't know where my phone is. Jacob called him out too.
He's the guy that appeared in the most recent one, because they made that kind of remake sequel and they brought him back, right? I cannot think of his name.
Yeah, I liked that. I liked that they brought him back.
Yeah, it's I gotta say real quick about Jennifer Aniston. Like, as you can see here on the cover, her luck just ran out, right? Well, that's after she got big. The original like poster and stuff, the tagline was "Their luck just ran out." And then after Jennifer Aniston hit it big, they slapped her face front and center. They changed it to "Her luck ran out," and so they kind of changed the whole marketing to revolve around Jennifer Aniston in this movie. And that's a shame, because I like her in this movie. I do, but it's like, yeah, exactly. And it's like the movie's strong enough on its own with this goofy ass leprechaun running around with an amazing, I don't care what you say, an amazing performance by Warwick Davis.
Yes. Absolutely. He makes the movie.
he does. He's having the time of his life in this thing. And I got to give him props because that makeup could not have been easy to act in and run around and do stunts and everything else. And he just seems like he's having so much fun.
Absolutely.
So, guys, what do you... Mark Holt?
Holton is the actor's name, and he was in Pee-wee's Big...
Yeah, he was Francis.
Yeah.
Yep. So, guys, what do you think about the Leprechaun franchise?
It's not good, but I like that Warwick Davis is in it. I like the strange sense of humor. It's kind of has a similar sense of humor as Freddy Krueger to me, but I feel like it fits better, at least for me. I'm more accepting of a disgusting, perverted leprechaun than I am of a janitor that was burned alive, I guess.
I kind of agree.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that. Like, Freddy Krueger's a dude. Like, what's so special about him? The Leprechaun is a freaking leprechaun. Like, that's... I get why he has magical powers and junk, you know?
Yep.
So, do one of you guys want to just give our viewers a quick plot recap of, like, maybe the first one, just the setup at least? Like, why is Leprechaun? Who is Leprechaun?
I don't remember how they woke him up. How'd they wake him up? I've watched so many of these kill counts. There were like 8 of them.
I do remember.
Because they did like a legit horror. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, you could jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but with the first one, at least, there was an Irish guy who somehow, like, off camera, stole the leprechaun's gold, and he brings it back to, like, where was the movie set?
Wasn't it Arizona or something?
Someplace like that. I wanted to say one of the Dakotas, but, like, yeah, he brings it back, like, to his mother, and the leprechaun follows him and kills his mom, kills the guy's mom, and somehow, I don't remember how, because it was by accident, he tricked the leprechaun into the like, into a crate, and he puts a 4-leaf clover on the crate.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Doesn't
even secure it down.
No.
Yeah.
Doesn't put anything on top of it. Just puts this 4-leaf clover on the crate and be like, you will lie here forever. And in a much better Irish, that was not even an attempt at an Irish accent. But, like, that's it. And then fast forward however many years, and it's Jennifer Aniston's character and her dad. I don't remember why they're moving into the house. Like, they're kind of falling on hard times or something. They had to move or whatever. But they're moving into this house that, like, hasn't been touched, I guess, since the guy's mom died. And they bring in these 3 painters. You've got the hot one, the dumb one, and the little kid. And because this was, like, an 80s movie where it was okay, like, child labor was fine. And
Yeah.
93.
Oh, so later than I thought.
Yeah. So you got Mark Holton, and then the dumb one and the kid.
Yes, exactly.
So that's pretty good.
Exactly. And
it's like if somebody saw Ernest Scared Stupid and they were like, let's make a whole series of these.
Except, when did Ernest Scared Stupid come out? Was it before this or after?
91.
Oh my god, it was before. Yeah, they totally ripped it off. So yeah, like, in I don't even remember how it happened, because it doesn't matter. The most important thing is the leprechaun and how he's chasing them around. So somehow the unsecured 4-leaf clover gets knocked off the leprechaun's crate, because who could have seen that one coming?
4-leaf clovers are known for their heft and their weight.
So then Leprechaun escapes. In the meantime, I think the kid and the what, Holton? What was his first name?
Mark Holton.
Mark Holton. They find the leprechaun's gold, and Mark's character thinks it's chocolate, so he accidentally eats one of them, and so then the leprechaun comes and hijinks ensue, and they have to get the gold back to him for him to leave them alone, and he chases them all over the place, and they're acting all terrified, except it's Warwick Davis in terrible makeup chasing them all over the place. So it's how scared can you really be? I mean, I
that being said, I don't know what year I saw this movie first, but I think I probably saw it right around when it came out, because I remember being really stressed out about them getting out of that house when I first saw it.
I will admit, I think the movie does a pretty good job. If you stop and think about it, it's ridiculous, but the movie takes it just seriously enough, because it doesn't take it too seriously. You can tell people are having fun with it, but I think it takes it just seriously enough that if you let yourself be carried along by it, yeah, it's stressful. They're trapped in this house. No matter where they go, the leprechaun is there. It's just really any other horror monster after that. You can't get away from him.
Yeah.
Right.
But in the end, doesn't he explode?
Oh yeah, and guys, what was the one-liner? The famous one-liner when the kid shoots him with the slingshot. It's great.
Something with Lucky Charms.
Fuck you, Lucky Charms. Amazing. That's incredible. I love all the little leprechaun bits in this, when they throw all those shoes at him to get him to shine the shoes to buy themselves time. I think that's really cool, and I don't know. I think it's super entertaining. So I enjoy this one as a, like we've talked about before. When I'm generally watching horror, I'm not sometimes I'm looking for that intense, oh my god. Sometimes I just want to see a ridiculous leprechaun menace Jennifer Aniston.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So then the geniuses at where is this, Trimark, are hey, that one did pretty good. Let's do another Leprechaun movie. And then they did that again 5 more times.
Well, then they did one where they were trying to make it a legitimate horror movie, where the leprechaun was more like an animal or a beast that would eat gold or eat them, people, or something like that. And then they did a reboot, right? But they didn't get Warwick Davis back.
Yeah.
And it was a sequel to the first one, and ignored all the other ones, I think.
Yeah.
That one, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say they pulled a Godzilla. Go on.
Oh. That one, it seemed like they kept the same type of spirit, even though they didn't get the Warwick back. So I only watched the kill count of that one. I did watch all of the legitimate horror movie Leprechaun one, and it's not good. I mean, It is what it is. Like, watch it if
Oh.
you want to watch a silly. I think that the Leprechaun is looks relatively good. It's mostly practical effects. If they have some CG, then it's not enough to bother me too much. So it's another one where they're just stuck in a house and it's stressful. But the new one, the Leprechaun Returns or whatever it is, that one actually looks like they put some effort into it, and it's got more more flavor like the first one, but bigger budget. So I'd be interested in watching the full length version of that one. Definitely.
I've only seen the kill count versions of all of them, but honestly, just based on his sort of synopsis and his analysis of them, I want to see. Is it the second one with the woman actor who is just shit? Where like the leprechaun wants to marry her?
Oh yeah, I think that is the second one where he wants to get married.
Yeah, I want to see that one. The two in the hood, like they actually sound legit. Like especially the way the like again it's a different kind of feel I think from the first movie, but the way they treat it and sort of the desperation of the characters, I think it's a different take on the story that seems like it should be so ridiculous. But I mean, it actually sounded good. Like he got me wanting to see those movies. And the last one, because is it? I don't think it's a spoiler. Like I don't think it's a surprise. But the main female character in the last movie, isn't she Jennifer Aniston's daughter, or something like?
Yeah,
she's related to her.
Yeah.
Like that seemed kind of cool. Like and that the Mark Holder character comes back and
it's in the same house.
yeah. Yeah. So as
It remind.
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was gonna say it reminds me of what they've done with the later Chucky movies, like the Child's Play movies, where they get some of the original cast back, the original Andy. The story is actually continued, even though the audience thinks it's a remake, and it's like, oh, this is still a sequel. This is a continuation. It's really neat. But go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say like it really got me interested, and it's one of those. I don't know. I think the parallel to Chucky is a good one because at first it seems like, oh my god, this is so ridiculous. It's just like horror fluff, or like it's a good popcorn movie, and he explodes at the end. Like how is he coming back from that?
Yeah.
And I think he dies in almost every of the sequels, like in interesting, horrible ways. But he's always back, and I know we've talked about this in this type of thing in another episode. But it's almost like the story of the leprechaun, this particular horror leprechaun. It's almost bigger than the sum of its parts now. And what people want to do with it, like I would be interested to see if they make another one, and like what are they going to do with it now?
I think the thing that would really like cement it, if Jennifer Aniston didn't take herself too seriously and decided to do one with Warwick Davis and just like ham it up and have fun, like I think that would be like, sometimes when actors get big, it's like, oh, I can't acknowledge that I was in the stupid movie from back then. Or I think it would be really cool for her, like show she doesn't take herself too seriously, to kind of like, hey, why not? Let's just have fun with it.
I've heard that everybody who was in Rocky Horror are still pleased about it, except for the dude who played Rocky.
Aww.
Oh, okay. That's a shame. So, guys, do you feel that the Leprechaun films are a good look at like Irish mythology and the leprechaun, or how do you feel about that?
Not particularly, but I do enjoy that they included some things
Mhm.
in the mythologies and folklore and stuff.
Mhm.
So they made an effort.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I was going to say, I think the idea to make a horror movie with a killer thing came first, and then they interjected, Leprechaun right into it. Like, I don't think anybody set out to make a really good Irish folklore based horror movie with the Leprechaun films.
it's true.
Yeah. It does make me wonder, though, where the idea came from. Because nothing in any of the movies, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but nothing in any of the movies have anything to do with St. Patrick's Day. And I think we were talking before we started that leprechauns in Irish folklore don't necessarily have to do anything with St. Patrick's Day. Like,
Mm.
they've become, at least in the United States, they've become sort of the mascot of St. Patrick's Day. So in that respect, it kind of makes sense. They're just using the leprechaun, not, and I guess not trying to shoehorn in St. Patrick's Day, which I kind of appreciate.
Mm.
But and I thought it really made me wonder after, I don't remember which one it was, but there's one of the Leprechaun movies where there's a magic amulet, and after I read
Mhm.
the thing where one of the sources that I found said to bargain with a leprechaun, you had to take his ring, his cold, or his amulet. I was like, I wonder if whoever wrote this movie knew that, or if it's just a coincidence. They needed
Mhm.
something to
Yeah.
use, and it was convenient because it could be around his neck. But
I would hope that they would do the research,
I would hope so too.
even if it was in the sequel, one of the sequels.
You'd hope so, but I could totally see the producers being like, he's got to have a magic something around him. What do we got? A belt buckle, a button? And then somebody's like, boss says here in the Encyclopedia Britannica that the leprechaun's got amulets. Great, put it in. And like, that's the extent of the research they did. I could totally see that, But who knows? Who knows? Do you guys have any other thoughts on the Leprechaun film franchise?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Bring Warwick Davis back.
Yeah.
Please. Please. He is a gem.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're moving forward with a Willow TV show, and Warwick is involved with that. So that is like, I am super into that.
Yes, please.
So guys, any other Irish horror that you want to talk about? Movies or books or anything like that?
I mean, I watched the movie Red Clover, but I think I'd like to wait and maybe use that as a recommendation so that I can watch it again and then see if I can find the commentary on it, because it
Okay.
it seemed a lot like the Leprechaun movie that they tried to make a horror movie out of it. But it was also seemed like they bet all their money on Billy Zane, and Billy Zane was like, if you're going to put my name on your movie cover, then I get to do whatever I want. And he did.
So what is I gotta ask, what's Red Clover like? What's it about?
So it's about this, and I'm not exactly sure where they are, but it's about this girl and her father and her grandfather. They live in, it seems like it's rural, but then there are scenes where it's kind of a city. So it's like her dad is the sheriff, chief of police person, and it's like he has his second in command, but then he also has like a police force. So it's like, how big is this place actually? But she is learning from her grandfather's. Her grandfather's teaching her how to hunt boar in the woods outside of the city. And she's out hunting with him one day, and she stumbles across this area in the woods where there's a bunch of clover growing, and there's a 4-leaf red clover growing in it. And she picks it, and it immediately gives her the black spot, and wakes up the leprechaun, which is more of kind of like a bat person looking thing. Like it looks like almost like one of the baddies from The Descent, but gray and brown instead of white. But so it attacks her, but she's fends it off, and then she runs away, and her grandfather finds her, and her dad, who is Billy Zane, and the chief of police, comes, and he's like just doing dialogue, and the other actors are kind of looking at him confused, and then they think he's done, so they go to say their lines, and he's not done, and then he's like, "What did you say?" And then they say their lines, and he's like, "Ah!" And he goes off, and so the leprechaun is like attacking people, and it's their family was cursed. The girl's family was cursed, and they're supposed, like, the grandpa knew about the leprechaun in the woods and the red clover and everything like that, and everybody thought he was a crazy town drunk, but he was right about it, of course, that trope. But he still took his granddaughter pretty much unprepared into these woods where the red clover was. Like, okay, bro. But so anyway, the leprechaun just kind of kills all her friends. It turns into like a sort of slasher movie where it's there are the established characters, and it hunts down and kills every single one of them and stuff. And so halfway through this, like maybe half an hour before the end, Billy Zane has this long exposition about how he was so sorry that her mom left, and it was his fault that the mom left. And she was like, "You never talk about her. What happened to her?" And he was like, "We went to the equivalent of like Walmart, and I lost her." and she was like,
Jeez.
What?
I thought
And
you were
he
going
was
to
like-
say something like the leprechaun ate her, bring this full circle.
Wow.
No!
This one sounds like a gem, Hilary. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, he's like, he starts crying, and he's like, "I just can't find her." And then the leprechaun reaches in the car and eats him.
Oh!
And like drags him under the car and rips him in half, eats his top half, and she pulls him out, and it's just legs. And it's like, it's this whole long story about how he lost his wife at Walmart, essentially Walmart or whatever. And then he immediately gets killed. And it's like, this movie didn't have that comical tone until that point. And I don't even remember how it ends.
After that, I mean, what can top that, man? Normally, when you're like, "Yeah, I'm a single father," and they're like, "Oh, what happened to your wife?" And you say, "I lost her." They go, "Oh, was it cancer?" Well, it's not like, "No, we were at Walmart one day, and she moved out of eyesight, and I don't know.
And then
What the fuck?
she was just gone. And that was it. They never addressed it again because he died immediately. So it's just like,
God.
Mom got left at Walmart and then she never came home.
Oh my God, I've got to track this thing down, at least for those moments.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Awesome discussion, awesome recommends. Let us move now to trivia.
All right, guys. I hope you brushed up on your Celtic and Irish folklore, because I have for you here 10 terrifying and sometimes bizarre creatures, and you got to name them for me. I'll give you the description. You got to name them. So let's just start off nice and easy here. Number 1. A female spirit whose horrible wailing portends death.
Banshee.
Oh, a point, Hilary. Hilary, yeah, Heather, you're too slow on that draw.
No,
you got to get your 6 guns. Get ready
I am editing this video. When you edit this video, I answered first.
No.
Okay. Question 2. A headless rider on a black horse carrying his own head and sometimes pulling a funerary cart.
I mean, other than the Headless Horseman?
The Headless Horseman was inspired by this old legend of Irish folklore.
That's cool. I don't know.
Okay. That is called a Doulahan. Doulahans. So there wasn't just one headless horseman, there were plenty of them. In fact, in Darby O'Gill, when the funerary coach comes to take Darby, that's a Doulahan that's pulling it, a headless rider.
Nice.
Yep, it's fun stuff. Number 3, a trickster fairy shapeshifter that often takes the form of a terrifying black horse with glowing golden eyes.
A mare? M-A-R-E?
I don't have that down here. A lot of these go by many different names, so potentially, but I didn't see that in my looking this stuff up. This creature is a puka. Yes, and the pictures I found, some of them are terrifying. Good stuff. Okay, here we have a band of terrifying dead sinners that roam the land that steal the souls of the dying.
I have not heard of these.
This is apparently called and again, my Gaelic is non-existent, so the Slúag? I guess if you die and you have all this sin in you and you haven't been pardoned yet, instead of going to hell, you might be forced as your punishment to roam the earth in this like band of these flying, horrible, black humanoid shapes that come to other sinners and try to steal their souls away as they die. All right.
Wow.
The Demon King with one humongous poisonous eye that can kill anything that he looks at.
Sauron.
You're very, very close, Hilary and Heather, because you were late too. This is Baelor. That is his name. And Tolkien, of course, stole that to use for the Baelor in The Lord of the Rings. Okay. We got a wet horse that, when ridden, immediately jumps into the water to drown the rider.
Oh.
That's not a Nixie, is it?
No. This is a Kelpie.
Kelpie.
Yeah, Kelpie. These horses would like...
Close up.
They were like... They just chill out there, wait for somebody to be like, man, I need a horse to ride. Oh, there's one. And climb on it. And then they jump into the water to drown this person. It's very weird. It's kind of like the puka we talked about before.
And I probably just offended a whole bunch of people by suggesting it was a selkie. Like, selkies are the only sort of mythical water horses that I know about. There's probably something that's totally different. I apologize.
No problem. No problem. All right. Here is number 7, a seal that can shed their skin to become human and live on land. To become a seal again, they have to get back in their old seal skin. What was it? Who said that, Heather?
Is that a selkie? Is that the selkie?
That is point Heather. I guess you're over here. Point Heather. That's a selkie. Yep. Seal people. Good times. Okay, we got number 8. This is a terrifying hunger phantom that resembles an emaciated man stalking the land that portends famines and death of that nature, death of starvation.
I don't know.
This would be a fear gorta. So yeah, again, terrifying. Number 9. This is, I love this one. This is a fairy that takes the form of a newt, a little lizard, crawls into your mouth, down your throat, and then eats the food that you eat until you starve to death. Then it leaves you in... What's that?
Tapeworm.
No, they have a better name for it. But that is pretty true. I wonder if that is if people had tapeworms and they'd be like, oh, I blame it on this thing. I wonder if that's where that comes from.
Maybe.
This thing is, of course, guys, how did you not get this? The Alp Lucara, also known as the joint eater. Terrifying. Don't want that. And number 10, Warwick Davis.
Warwick Davis.
Yeah, what mythological creature is he?
Willow.
A leprechaun.
He's the leprechaun. We just... Point Hilary.
Nobody gets
He is
my
Willow,
sense
but
of
we
humor.
just talked...
Oh, God, nobody gets
We just
my
talked
sense of
about the
humor.
Leprechaun movies. All right, and that was trivia. You guys did great. Good job.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. My recommendation, all this talk about the fairy folk and stuff like that reminded me of this book. It is a companion to Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. And it is, if you've seen that movie, that there's this backstory of this explorer who kind of goes around and finds all the different types of fairies from around the world. And so this is supposedly his journal documenting all of the different types of fairies from around the world. There's ones from Japan and ones from China, and then there's a section on Ireland and Great Britain. So I think that Guillermo del Toro at least helped in the illustrations. Did I show this one yet? This one's a cool one.
That's neat.
Yeah, and there are references to the book in the movie, so that's pretty cool. This is without the dust cover.
Cool.
And then there's this mural that they actually have it on one of the walls of the one of the rooms of the movie. So, but it's just essentially a dictionary of different fairy folk from around the world, and then little parts of like journaling from the character from the movie. So it's a lot of fun, and I enjoy it, and you guys should check it out.
Nice. Now that's based off of the remake of Are You Afraid or Don't Be Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah, the one that came out in like 2010. If that's remake.
Yeah. I like that one. That was pretty good. And is the book written like it's an in-universe artifact, like it's the same book that the characters in the film would be reading, kind of a deal, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it didn't look exactly like this. I think that they probably had like a leather bound journal or something
Sure.
for it. But yeah, it's supposed to be the companion of like the character's actual writings of
Oh, that's
his
cool.
journeys and discoveries.
Oh, that's very cool. Very cool. I dig it.
Awesome. What about you, Colin? What is your recommendation?
I don't have anything physical, so put the movie in my hand. But my recommendation is completely not a horror movie. It is the 1952 film The Quiet Man. I love this movie. This is John Wayne and John Ford directing. He did like The Searchers and all these other big westerns. And it's just this great, quaint little, I guess you'd call it a romantic comedy. Like it's just this pleasant little movie where John Wayne plays a retired boxer from Pittsburgh no less, which is right up my alley, who decides to move back to his family's ancestral home in Ireland. They emigrated to the U.S. like 2 generations ago, and he's like, I just want a quiet life. I just want to move back here and just like go to the family home, and everything's cool. It's not even like a castle or anything. It's just this quaint, beautiful stone cottage in the middle of an extremely beautiful shot rural Ireland. They filmed on location, and it's just about him finding love with Maureen O'Hara, who's like the fiery redhead that kind of caretakes the property, and her brother hates John Wayne because John Wayne likes his sister, so they're gonna have this big fist fight. But it's not like dire. It's just everybody's pleasant. The Catholic and the Protestant priest are like taking sips of booze and betting on the fight, and people are going fishing and just walking around, and it's just so relaxed, enjoyable of a movie. It's just I keep saying quaint, but I don't know how to describe it any better. What's great about it is, if you've ever seen a John Ford movie, the cinematography in this is beautiful. The shots of the rural Irish countryside are just incredibly scenic. They got for the most of the cast, they got like Irish theater actors. I think John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara are the only big American actors, and Maureen O'Hara, I believe, is of Irish descent. For the extras, they just got people that lived in the surrounding little villages and towns, and just a great, pleasant slice of life kind of movie, and got a happy ending. Love that. So yeah, The Quiet Man with John Wayne, 1952. Check it out.
Very cool.
How about you, Heather?
I do not have an Irish themed recommendation, but it is green.
Okay.
But this is the Mammoth Book of Frankenstein, edited by Stephen Jones, with a foreword by Neil Gaiman. And it has... Let me not misspeak. It does... Yeah, it does have Mary Shelley's Frankenstein in it, and then a whole bunch of other short and not so short stories about Frankenstein, and it's and the concept of the Frankenstein monster. And some of the stories do deal with like actual Victor Frankenstein or the actual Frankenstein monster. Some don't. Some deal with like reviving the dead, but not in a zombie way, in a Frankenstein way. And they're all just really interesting, different stories. I am sure someone more steeped in than I in more contemporary, not Stephen King horror would recognize more of the authors. I do recognize Robert Bloch.
Oh yeah.
But that is the only other author besides Neil Gaiman and obviously Mary Shelley. But there's a ton of Frankenstein stories in here, all taking a slightly different take on that particular concept, or particularly of reviving the dead. So it's really good. I like it. I like reading like the Mary Shelley Frankenstein in the context of all of these other stories, to sort of see how they either call back to that particular story or do their own thing with the idea of a Frankenstein monster.
That sounds great. I love anthologies like that, where they get a single theme and just a bunch of different authors can go to town on it. So that sounds great. I'm very interested in picking that up myself. I love Robert Bloch. So you had me there.
Awesome. Well, any final thoughts on St. Patrick's Day, leprechauns, Irish lore, horror movies, Frankenstein?
I love all the things you just mentioned. I don't know. I really enjoy like Irish and Celtic mythology. There's a ton of Irish Celtic monsters and Dungeons and Dragons and fairies and stuff, so that's always fun. But yeah, I hope everybody watching and listening has a great St. Pat's Day, and drop us a line in the comments if you have any stories or anything you want to let us know about.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Hilary, where can people find you?
I'm on Instagram at Horalius_art, and I am now on YouTube at HoraliusArt.
Yay! Go subscribe, people.
Right now.
Or
And
you're
also-
dead to us.
And Colin, where can people find you?
On Instagram and Facebook, I'm at Colin Richards Art. On YouTube, I'm at Markers and Monsters. Shameless promotion, link in the description for my last year's Leprechaun episode, where I'm drawing the Leprechaun and talking about the movie.
Nice.
That's where you can find me.
Awesome. Well, guys, have a safe and happy St. Patrick's Day. Drop us a line, drop us a comment, and we will see you next time. Bye!
Fuck you, Lucky Charms!